What's going on, Art Wanderers? It's me once again, Sir Harold, your Wonder Art teacher, and still you're watching Valenzuela Live. Are you ready to time travel once more and explore different places full of wonderful things? Buckle up and be ready with your paper, pen, and self-learning packet as we continue our Art Wonderful expedition on the arts of Neoclassic and Romantic periods, only here in the Art Wonderland.
Time travel and seize the world with full fun of learning. Discover the arts and crafts that represents culture and traditions. This is the Art Wonderland.
As a constant reminder, before we begin our Art Wonderful expedition, let us always be reminded of the protocols to follow during the live streaming class.
Protocols to follow during the live streaming class. Respect everyone. Agree to recognize and abide by the protocols in the live stream and respect the feelings, rights, or traditions of everyone. No hate speech. Do not express or discourage violence towards a person or group based on something such as race, religion, sex, or sexual orientation. Be guided with the anti-cyberbullying law. Make sure that everyone feels safe. Bullying of any kind isn't allowed, and degrading comments about things such as race, religion, culture, sexual orientation, gender, or identity will not be tolerated. No promotion of products or items. Give more to this group than you take. Selling of products, self-promotion, spam, and irrelevant links aren't allowed. Use appropriate words in giving suggestions, comments, and queries. We're all in this together to create a welcoming environment. Let's treat everyone with respect. Healthy debates are natural, but kindness is required. After the FB live streaming, attend follow-up discussion in the different platforms provided by your subject teachers such as Messenger, Google Classroom, Google Meet, or MS Teams. Maximize the features of the different platforms to deepen your understanding of the competencies with the help of your subject teachers.
I hope everyone will be guided by the protocols for us to maintain order during our session. At the end of our Art Wonderful expedition, you are expected to create artworks guided by techniques and styles of the Neoclassic and Romantic periods. Describe the influence of iconic artists belonging to the Neoclassic and Romantic periods. Apply different media techniques and processes to communicate ideas, experiences, and stories showing the characteristics of the Neoclassic and Romantic periods. Evaluate works of art in terms of artistic concepts and ideas using criteria from the Neoclassic and Romantic period. Show the influences of Neoclassic and Romantic periods on Philippine art forms. And participate in an exhibit using completed artworks with Neoclassic and Romantic periods characteristics. To see if you remember our previous tour, our art travel buddy Bunky is back to guide and assist you in completing the task titled All About Neoclassic and Romantic Arts.
Let's recap the first part of our tour on the arts of the Neoclassic and Romantic periods with your first task today, all about Neoclassic and Romantic arts. Each number will contain a description of an artist, artwork, artistic elements and principles, and characteristics from the Neoclassical and Romantic periods, and you will select which of the given options is being described. You can either type your answers into our comments section or write them directly on your answer sheets. You will be given 5 seconds for each item. Are you ready? Let's begin. Number 1. Which of the following architectural styles does not fall under the umbrella of Neoclassical architecture? Classical block style, Neo-Gothic style, Palladian style, Temple style. Did you respond, Neo-Gothic style? You're correct. Because Neo-Gothic architecture is considered the architectural manifestation of Romanticism. Number 2. The two movements, Neoclassicism and Romanticism, are diametrically opposed and exhibit distinct characteristics in their artworks. Which of the following does not describe Romantic art? Dramatic compositions, emotional extremes, formal composition, heightened sensation. Formal composition is the right answer. It is one of the characteristics of neoclassical art, which contrasts sharply with the dramatic compositions of Romantic art. Number 3. Portrait paintings in famous Romantic artists of the Romantic period focuses on emotion, and the artists of this time expressed as much feeling and passion as they could on a canvas. Which of the following famous artists was not a painter of the Romantic period? Eugene Delacroix, Francisco Goya, Jacques-Louis David, Jean-Louis Theodore Géricault. You are correct, Jacques-Louis David. Because he is a well-known French painter in the neoclassical style, who is widely regarded as the preeminent painter of his time. Number 4. Classical Rome, patriotism, courage, and honor were all sources of inspiration for the neoclassical period's various forms of art. Which of the following art masterpieces demonstrates this type of artistic element? Insane Woman, Oath of Horatii, Saturn devouring his son, The Burial of Sardine. The correct answer is Oath of Horatii. It is a large painting in which three brothers salute their father, who holds their swords, in a scene from a Roman legend about a feud between Rome and Alba Longa. For the last number, number 5. Which of the following neoclassical sculptures commemorates the Swiss Guards massacre during the French Revolution in 1792? Christ, George Washington, Lion of Lucerne, Psyche revived by Cupid's kiss. It's the Lion of Lucerne. It is one of Thorvaldsen's most well-known sculptures of a dying lion in Lucerne, Switzerland. Great job, art wanderers. Back to you, Sir Harold.
Thank you, Bongi, for that art wonderful task. Let us now move on to your second task. That's my style. Let's see how much you know about the significant characteristics, styles, and techniques that represent two art periods, the Neoclassical period and the Romantic period. You will determine whether the characteristics, styles, or techniques of art are neoclassical or romantic in nature. You may key in your answers on your answer sheet or in a notebook, or simply type them into the comment section. Take it away, Bonky!
Number 1. This period's artworks were about humanity's relationship with nature, and how nature dominated man at times. If you answered Romantic period, you are correct. Number 2. Artworks during this period coincided with the French Revolution and the American Revolution. If your answer is Neoclassical period, that is right. Number 3. This art period exhibits a rigid, geometrical, and moral message. If you answered Neoclassical period, you are also right. Number 4. One of the art styles in this period was attempting to determine how man and nature could coexist without artificial laws. If your answer is Romantic period, you are doing great. And for the last number, number 5. During this period, art style was always influenced by visual drama. If your answer is Romantic period, you are certainly correct. Wonderful! You have identified the distinctive characteristics, styles and techniques of art that belong to the Neoclassical and Romantic period. Congratulations! Back to you, Sir Harold.
Thank you once again, Bonky. Speaking of art styles and techniques you have with Bonky, we will now investigate the various styles, media techniques, and processes influenced by iconic artists to communicate ideas, experiences, and stories that reflect the characteristics of the Neoclassical and Romantic periods. Let us now begin our tour with the Neoclassical and Romantic art styles and techniques.
The late 1700s saw the Neoclassical period of art, which coincided with the French Revolution and the American Revolution. People wanted to revolt against their oppressors, whether they were royalty or English, but they did not say so openly. Artists of the time, such as Jacques Louis David, included a slew of symbols in this painting, the Oath of the Orati, to alert people that it was time to rise and that doing so was the right thing to do. Through the painting, you can see the number 3 repeated. 3 arches, 3 men, 3 swords, 3 women. 3 is the holy number of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. It is informing people that this is a wise decision. You'll also notice how rigid the poses are. They are not at ease as the Renaissance was. Again, in the death of Socrates, the poses are rigid and geometrical. And it's almost as if there's a moral message here. Rather than abandoning his ideals, he'd rather die. And in this moral message, this adherence to geometry, and this return to the Greek and Roman ideas of how things should be and how they should be governed. Even buildings in Washington, D.C. are returning to the neoclassical style. These were obviously not constructed during the Greek and Roman eras. These were created in the late 17th and early 18th centuries to remind us of the Greek and Roman origins of democracy. Any of the buildings in Washington, D.C. that look like this remind us of the neoclassical movement. But even in America, people were doing similar things in their art. Emmanuel Lutz' Washington crossing the Delaware is on display. Again, we do not see Roman robes, but we do see blankets and cloaks wrapped around the figures. As a result, we get a sense of Greek and Roman culture. And once again, the poses are very rigid and geometrical. And in terms of moral messages, Washington is leading the way, and he will lead on to justice and victory over the British. Romanticism first appeared in the early 1800s. It was not about love, affection, or relationships, but about humanity's relationship with nature. In this style, they were sometimes even, and sometimes nature dominated man. It also had to do with visual drama. Caspar David Friedrich, for example, and his painting Wander Above the Sea of Fog. The vista is responsible for visual drama. The artist chose to paint this to make us fall in love with nature and appreciate the beauty that surrounds us. Things were uneven at times, as in Eugene Delacroix's painting, The Lion Hunt. Drama is present in this painting, but in a quite different way. The action contains drama. We see lions and men fighting, and horses riding on the ground. We're not sure who will win, men or nature, but it's a battle. Another aspect of the Romanticist style was that they were attempting to determine how man and nature could coexist without these artificial laws. They were interested in seeing where the chips landed as they fell. John Singleton Copley created the following image: Watson and the shark. We have a battle between man and nature once more. On the bottom, we see a young man who has fallen out of the boat and the shark about to devour him. His friend has a spear and plans to save his life. But once again, we have no idea who will prevail. This caught in the act moment feeling could indicate something else. We can tell from the image that it was taken quickly. The following one, The Raft of Medusa by Theodore Géricault, shows that nature will most likely win. The men are floating down the river on a raft. They have been shipwrecked. They have been on there for days and days. And there is a guy on top trying to flag down another ship. But there is a storm out there. We are not sure if they will survive. This was based on a horrible true story. But it is that idea of visual drama, man in nature, that comes up repeatedly. Nature appears to be the victor in this case. This one looked lovely. You suspect it has something to do with Vista Thing, which aims to highlight what is beautiful about nature. When we look down at the bottom, we can see little hands and feet and other things sticking out of the water. J.M.W. Turner's The Slave Ship depicts a storm in which everyone has perished. Nature has triumphed in this battle. Nobody is alive. At first glance, it appears to be lovely painting, but upon closer inspection, we can see that there is a great deal of drama and most likely sadness going on. Romanticism is something to remember from the early 1800s, and it truly is about man and nature, and sometimes they are equal, but sometimes nature wins.
The art styles and techniques of the Neoclassical and Romantic periods are not the same. They both, however, inspire people through the works of great artists. Through the message of the art pieces, various artworks express ideas and educate us. Let us now discover the influences of Neoclassic and Romantic periods on the Philippine art forms. The ideology of Neoclassicism and Romanticism can be seen in the Philippines through various major works of art such as paintings, sculptures, and architectural structures. Some well-known contributing artists express their abilities and ideas in their respective fields of expertise. Let us begin with famous artists and their works of art in painting, starting with Felix Resurrección Hidalgo y Padilla.
Felix Resurrección Hidalgo y Padilla. Felix Hidalgo was regarded as one of the great Filipino painters of the late 19th century, as well as being significant in the Philippine history for having known and inspired members of the Philippine Reform movement. His painting, The Christian Virgins Being Exposed to the Populace, depicts two barely dressed Christian slave women being ridiculed by a group of rude Roman male onlookers. Juan Luna y Novicio. Juan Luna is a painter and sculptor who was among the first recognized Filipino artists. During the late 19th century, he was also a political activist in the Philippine Revolution. The Spoliarium is one of his most well-known works. Spoliarium is a Latin term that refers to the Roman Colosseum's basement, where fallen and dying gladiators were dumped and stripped for their worldly possession. The painting depicts a scene from Roman history centered on the bloody carnage of gladiatorial matches. The subject of Luna's Spoliarium can be interpreted as an imperial Rome allegory corresponding to imperial Spain. The image of Romans dragging dead gladiators represent colonial oppression of indigenous peoples. Fernando Cueto Amorsolo. Amorsolo is a painter who has been recognized as a national artist. He painted portraits and rural Philippine landscapes. He was also well known for his proficiency in light and artistry. Planting Rice with Mayon Volcano is one of his famous paintings.
Let us now move on to famous sculptors and their works of art, beginning with Guillermo Estrella Tolentino.
Guillermo Estrella Tolentino. Tolentino is a Filipino sculptor known as the father of Philippine arts who was named National Artist for the Visual Arts in 1973. His famous artworks were Oblation. The original Oblation is located on the third floor of the main library of UP Diliman, and Pambansang Bantayog ni Andres Bonifacio. Napoleon Isabelo Veloso Abueva. Abueva is a national artist for sculpture. He was dubbed as Father of Modern Philippine Sculpture. In addition, he is the only Boholano to have received the honor of National Artist of the Philippines in the field of visual arts. One of his famous artworks is Siyam na Diwa ng Sining.
Now, let's have the Neoclassical and Romantic architecture in the Philippines. There is an article on the internet by R.G. Chan and Associates, which is an established group of architects, engineers, and planners based in Baguio City. Founded in 1982 and recognized as an exponent of Building Information Modeling or BIM technology. The said article is titled American Colonial Architecture in the Philippines. Thanks to Architect Rafi Chan for allowing us to use this article and photo archives that discusses some of the neoclassical and romantic architecture during the American colonization in the Philippines. You can visit the link provided on the screen to read the full article.
Dramatic changes swept through the Philippines as the 20th century began. The long Spanish reign over 300 years ended in 1898, and a young, powerful America eagerly took over as a new colonizer until 1946. America's priorities, policies, and strategies were enshrined in the structures erected in its new territory. New architecture accompanied the new regime. In 1901, the American Insular Government in the Philippines was established, and the Bureau of Architecture and Construction of Public Buildings was immediately established. As an agency of the Department of Public Instruction, its priority projects were public health and education. As evidenced by the construction of the Bureau of Health building, the Insular Ice and Cold Storage Plant, and numerous schoolhouses throughout the state. During those early years, construction was primarily undertaken by engineers from the United States Army. Burnham, a member of Chicago school that pioneered the modern design movement and a neoclassical advocate, recommended William B. Parsons to carry out his plans. As the Bureau of Engineering's consulting architect, later renamed the Bureau of Public Works, Parsons developed an American colonial Philippine architecture that fused modern and Filipino influences. The Manila Hotel, the Philippine General Hospital, the Army-Navy Club, and the Philippine Normal School were all inspired by this principle. Aside from Burnham and Parsons, American architects such as Piers Anderson, Burnham's associate, Ralph Jowan, and Harold Keyes also left their imprint on the local architecture. Among Filipino architects, Ricardo Aureliano was the first to be hired by Americans, serving as a consultant to Governor General William Howard Taft in 1901. Moore worked of the Bureau of Public Works, most notably the pensionados who received academic scholarship in the United States. Carlos Barreto, from the first batch in 1903, Antonio Toledo, 1910, Tomas Mapua, 1911, and Juan Arellano, 1912, who would become the most influential Filipino architect of the time. Their notable works include the agriculture, finance, and legislative buildings, all stately icons of American colonial power. Without a doubt, the American era saw a blossoming of the Philippine panorama. Modern American structures blended with antique Spanish churches and forts, as well as vernacular Filipino houses, to form an appealing architectural landscape. Manila has proudly rubbed shoulders with the world's best cities. To combat the summer heat, the American insular government prioritized the development of a settlement in the cooler region of the country early in its colonial rule. Daniel H. Burnham, a renowned city planner and architect, designed the vast area of Baguio in the mountain province of Benguet in 1904. A year after the resolution declaring it the summer capital was passed, government centers, hospitals, jails, schools, parks and lagoons, clubhouses, golf courses, and even summer residential mansion for the American Governor General were all built in Baguio. The Bureau of Science and Insular Laboratory Building was one of the first structures built during the American period. The mansion-style structure, located on Calle Pedro Hill in Manila, was designed in 1901 by the insular government's first American resident architect, Edgar Bourne. Its facilities were used to research and develop the country's abundant mineral, agricultural, and forest resources. The Executive House was built to house the offices of the American insular government in the Philippines during the administration of Governor General Francis Burton Harrison. It is located on the eastern side of the Spanish-era Malacañang Palace near the Pasig River. The Executive House, designed by consulting architect Ralph Harrington Dowan and supervised by Tomas Mapua in 1912, reflects American and Filipino-Hispanic architecture fused in stately proportions. Even though it has the appearance of American architecture, Tomas Mapua's sensibility as a Filipino emerges in the details of this provincial hospital building in Pampanga. The two-story structure, built by the Bureau of Public Works in 1915, was one of many facilities that attested to the insular government's commitment to public health. The Zamboanga Normal School was one of 8 normal schools established throughout the Philippines by the Americans, who overhauled the educational system after taking over colonial control from the Spanish. It has a dignified design and harmonious proportion that distinguished Filipino architect Juan Marcos Arellano's works. This magnificent 1918 structure was built in the American mission style, but with elements that allude to the country's Filipino-Spanish heritage. The Iloilo Customs House, with its tall tower in the center, is representative of government buildings found throughout the country that demonstrate the majestic proportions of American colonial architecture. It was designed in 1917 by Filipino architect Tomas Mapua and is located in Muelle Loni by the Long Harbor on the Iloilo River. The Negros Occidental Provincial Capital, located in Bacolod and designed by Filipino architect Juan Marcos Arellano in 1927, is one of the Philippines' grandest capital complexes. It is a magnificent example of American neoclassical architecture. The complex is highlighted by a lagoon with public art depicting a carabao, a work by Italian sculptor Francesco Monti that pays homage to Philippine agriculture. The Manila Post Office is the ultimate expression of American colonial architecture and is regarded as one of the most beautiful structures ever built in the Philippines in the 20th century. It was designed in 1925 by Filipino architect Juan Marcos Arellano and built by Santa Clara Lumber and Construction. Its well-planned location by the Pasig River, flanked by two important bridges in Manila, and at the entrance to the then wide Taft Avenue added to its scenic grandeur.
Colonization in the Philippines had a significant impact on the various art forms that we now have. It demonstrates how Western art has influenced our arts in the Philippines today. In some ways, the history of colonization has a positive impact and taught us valuable lessons. And after that art wonderful tour of the various styles and techniques in arts, the influence of iconic artists of the Neoclassical and Romantic periods, and its influences on the Philippine art forms, let us do an art activity called Up to Date. Although Neoclassicism and Romanticism are clearly distinct, they both inspire people through the works of great artists. A painting expresses ideas and educates us through the image's message. Our guest art wanderer artist will highlight and demonstrate to us her talent at painting. She is an alumna and academic achiever with high honors of Bignay National High School and currently a senior high school student at Punturin Senior High School, and she joined and won the following art contests. Let us all welcome and watch Catherine Simeon's own work of her Up to Date.
Hello Art Wanderers! I am Catherine and I will be showing you how I will do my up-to-date painting. Here are the materials that I'm going to use on this project: watercolor or gouache paint, paintbrush, water, watercolor paper or bond paper, and tape. You can use any available alternative materials to the following given materials that are not available. In doing this art project, we must follow the rubric provided. For the procedure, we will draw or paint an artwork in the neoclassical or romantic styles that promotes neither peace, saving the earth, gender equality, or any other issues that you may think of, and we will give the artwork a title and a brief description. First and foremost, we will tape the sides of the watercolor paper to prevent it from moving from time to time. Next, using a colored pencil, lightly sketch the outlines of your painting. It is preferable to use colored pencil because it is easier to erase, but it is entirely up to you if you prefer to use pencil. Paint a wash of cobalt blue in the upper part of the paper. And then mix a light green shade and apply a thin layer on the paper. Apply a wash of blue and then mix a brownish color. Layer the colors a bit with the same shades. This can take some time to come together, but trust the process. Moving on, apply a light blue color that will serve as the water in our painting. Mix some light green with the touches of blue to create a bit of a depth in the water. After that, you will blend it with water. Mix some light brown that will serve as the color of the cliff. Layering darker colors on an artwork adds depth and details. Use it in strategic places to make your painting stand out. This watercolor painting is inspired from one of the artworks of Shiva. This painting will be titled Nature and Stability because romanticism and nature are linked in the sense that it emphasizes nature's glory and beauty. You can add some darker colors for detailing. It might be stressful to create an artwork at times, especially when things go out of hand. But remember to trust the process and believe that you can. Add more highlights and finishing touches to the painting. Dry, and then it's done.
And to answer some questions on her experience in making her own up-to-date project, let us have once again our Art Wanderer artist, Miss Catherine Simeon.
Hello Art Wanderers! Hello Grade 9 Valenzuelanos and hello Sir Harold.
Hello, Catherine, and thank you for gracing and sharing your talent with us today. I just have some questions about your experiences of doing your own painting. What emotions did you experience while creating your masterpiece?
I'm excited to finish the painting and relieved to be able to share it with you.
That's nice. And we are also grateful to see your wonderful work of art. Is it possible to see the characteristics or ideas of neoclassicism or romanticism in your artwork?
Yes, Sir Harold. The painting that I made is mainly romanticism because it depicts an expression of my feelings and my interest in the natural world.
It's truly evident that your masterpiece depicts the characteristics of the art of the Romantic period. How do you think your artwork depicts the idea and message of the issues you've chosen to draw?
My artwork illustrates the idea of my chosen issue through the palette that I used. What I mean by palette is the choice of the colors that I put into the painting. We all know that in painting it is the color that conveys our message and different color means different emotions.
Well said, Miss Kath. Once again, thank you so much, Miss Simeon, for having us on our tour today.
Thank you so much, Sir Harold, for having me here. Thank you so much, Art Wanderers, for joining me on my journey in accomplishing the Art Wonderful task. It is such a great experience to showcase my talent to you guys, and I hope to see you again here in Art Wonderland.
It would be wonderful if you could participate in an exhibit of your completed artworks from the Neoclassic and Romantic periods, which your art teacher can organize. And to wrap up our Art Wonderful expedition to the world of Neoclassical and Romantic period, let's have once again our art travel buddy, Bunky.
The art styles and techniques of the Neoclassical and Romantic periods are not the same. They both, however, inspire people through the works of great artists. Through the message of the art pieces, various artworks express ideas and educate us. Colonization in the Philippines had a significant impact on the various art forms that we now have. It demonstrates how Western art has influenced our arts in the Philippines today. In some ways, the history of colonization has a positive impact and taught us valuable lessons.
I hope you have fun while learning on our Art Wonderful expedition with Bonky, because we already did. Right, Bonky?
Yes, Sir Harold. And I hope that our art wanderers will still join on the last leg of our Art Wonderful expedition, the Western classical plays and operas.
Once again, this is Sir Harold, your Wonder Art teacher.
And I am Bon Key, your art travel buddy.
And always remember, art is not a mirror held up to reality, but rather a hammer used to shape it. Stay safe, everyone. Have a good day, and see you on the last leg of our tour.
The Art Wonderland.